All right, hello, welcome back to Unqualified Analysis. It's no longer the specific Tuesday or Thursday version. We're back to one a week here. So we have got the recap of conference championships coming up, a whole host of headlines in the coaching ranks, and we'll get to all that here in just a second. First and foremost, we do have to go through the conference championship games, of course. We'll hit the football first, then we'll hit the headlines after that. That being said, I'm your host, Caleb. You can follow me on the Twitters at CalebVUA down there in the bottom right corner of the screen. You can find the link down in the description. Subscribe, like, rate, share, all that good stuff. Help us grow this thing. Either way, let's get into the football here, shall we? We'll hit on the first one here briefly, I suppose. Well, we'll see. I tend to talk in circles sometimes, so maybe it won't be as brief as I'm hoping for. But let's kind of hit on this the NFC Championship here briefly. So all the credit in the world to the Commanders. They hung in there tough, gave them a run for their money in the third quarter. Ultimately, just seeing how this game was played. First, you see the Commanders go on an 18-play drive, settle for a field goal. Each of the subsequent drives are kind of dinking and dunking, not getting big plays down the field. So you had that going. And then ultimately, you saw on the other side, first play from scrimmage, Saquon Barkley goes 60 yards to the house for the Eagles. And that's kind of indicative of how this game was going to go at some point. It didn't go that way for the first three quarters. Eagles flirted with pulling away. Then all of a sudden, fourth quarter, Commanders get desperate. Lose out on some fourth down conversions. Eagles take advantage, 21-0 in the fourth quarter. The final score of this thing is 55-23. Cash the over with ease, my friends. Eagles hit it by themselves. So hey, that's a good one to end off the season on. 58-1 on the year. Perfectly at the Mendoza line. Obviously, that technically loses you money, but we didn't lose you a whole lot on the year. And I'm pretty comfortable calling it there because I don't think I'm going to have a bet in the Super Bowl here. At least not a public one. I'm sure I'll bet some offline, but nothing I feel like putting my good name to. I guess we'll describe it that way. So hey, all things considered, not a terrible season gambling. What you need, dog? What you need? You okay over here? Okay, you just wanted to make sure I'm still alive in here. That's fair. I mean, you can hear me talking, so you should just kind of intuitively know that. But that being said, who knows? She gets a little bit worried when I'm here shutting this closet. That being said, as far as the Eagles go, this is the exact reason why I think more highly of this team in 2025 now, 2024 regular season, than I did the very similarly built team in 2022 that went to the Super Bowl, ultimately going to be facing off against the same opponent. We'll get to that here in just a second. But this is why I feel better about this team. Took a red-hot Commanders football team, red-hot Commanders offense, obviously out their best offensive lineman with a torn ACL, but still dominate, shut them out in the fourth quarter, hold them to 23 points, and then on the other side, you score 55 points in this game. And most importantly, even without Cam Jurgens, the run game absolutely dominated the entire game. 15 carries for Saquon Barkley, 118 yards, tacked on 2 more touchdowns in addition to the one that he had right off the bat, first play from scrimmage. Ends up with 3 touchdowns on the game. Another dominant performance from Saquon Barkley. He is putting together what could be considered an all-time postseason right now. He's really trending in that direction. I mean, let's take a look at the games that he's had here in the postseason because it's been nothing short of dominant here throughout this whole thing. So first round, doesn't get a touchdown but goes 25 carries, 119 yards against the Packers. They win with ease. Second round, goes for 205. 2 touchdowns. They win that game versus the Rams. Could not have done it without him. And then the explosion. 118 yards, 3 touchdowns, last 2 games averaging 7.9 yards per carry. That brings his postseason total just so far to 442 yards on the ground, 6.7 yards per carry, 5 touchdowns. Like I said, he's putting together an all-time postseason right now. If he goes into the Super Bowl, has a big-time performance and the Eagles win, I mean, we're talking about, like, legitimate, like, that's a stamp on the Hall of Fame resume. Already got a 2,000-yard season going for him. Led the league in carries this year. You tack on an all-time postseason run. You cap it off with a big game against a really solid defense in the Chiefs. That's a legitimate, like, Hall of Fame stamp. It's not a question anymore. He's getting in if that happens. I already kind of think he's getting in. He's a generational type of running back, and that's not said lightly. That's said in hindsight after we considered him a generational running back coming out of college. He got buried in New York for a few years, still was very productive in New York. Put him in this Eagles situation, and he's just padding the Hall of Fame resume. I think already you can just kind of stamp this postseason as a reason why he's a Hall of Fame running back. But yeah, you add that Super Bowl performance, if he does do that on top of this, man, that's a special, special year. Also, today I realized Saquon Barkley's younger than me, so I'm old, folks. I'm old right now. We're going to be the same age, or the same age nominally, 28 for, what's that, 19 days? A little bit of crossover there, but yeah, I'm old. I'm getting old, folks, and we're trying to stave that off as long as possible. Ryan Day dye job incoming. You just wait. I'm going to dye everything jet black. Everything, I promise you. But yeah, Eagles move on to the Super Bowl. Commanders, nothing to hang your head about on this one. You got way farther than anyone expected coming into the season. I did not. I thought you were going to finish maybe dead last in the division. I knew the Giants were going to be bad from day one, and lo and behold, they didn't buck any expectations there. They were terrible from the start. And still same GM, still same head coach, as far as I know, there in New York. So I'm praying for you, Giants fans. I'm really praying for you. That being said, Washington, on the flip side of things, you got a franchise quarterback, a guy that you can count on next year to be a top 10 sort of quarterback. Looks like you're going to keep Cliff Kingsbury, so that's incredibly positive going into year 2 of that offense with Cliff Kingsbury. That's really exciting for you. You just were a little bit personnel deficient in a few key categories. And I think the real problem is youth, because you brought in good players on the defensive side of the ball. Defensive line, never really a question for me, though they are getting long in the tooth now. I think you kind of squandered your window with that elite defensive line. Probably time to beef up on that side of the ball even more. Probably need some more depth at linebacker, need some better top-end talent in the secondary. Obviously, still got to keep improving the offensive line. They played great throughout the course of this year, but even now, I mean, you lose, who is it, Sam Cosmi, I believe they lost with an ACL in the playoffs, so he's going to miss a large chunk of next season. How large is that chunk? We'll find out when we get there, but I know different positions, different types of explosive demands athletically. It is worth noting, though, that TJ Hawkinson did not come back until, midway through the season this last year, and he injured his ACL in the last 2 or 3 weeks of the regular season last year. So injuring this in the NFC Championship game, or actually the NFC divisional game, doesn't bode well for the interior to start next season, but that's even more of an emphasis. They got a ton of cap room. Spend heavy on the offensive line, the defense. Probably even want to bring in another receiver, quite frankly. Terry McLaurin's great, but Zach Ertz is long in the tooth. There's not really a clear-cut second option. I mean, Olamide Zaccheaus has emerged, but he's not a long-term second option there. You need another receiver. Might be an area that you look at in the draft. Unfortunately, you're probably too high. Too far back in the draft to get a guy like Ted McMillan, but still, perpetually deep wide receiver drafts, pretty much year after year at this point. The amount of talent coming out of college at wide receiver is just Looney Tunes on a year-by-year basis. So that's an area you want to be looking at. maybe don't go the white wide receiver route or the stereotypical white slot wide receiver route like you did with Luke McCaffrey last year. Seems like a bit of a dud with a third-round pick there, but hey, maybe he rounds into shape into year 2. Who's to say? Who's to say? But that doesn't seem like a great pick off the bat, and a really deep wide receiver class last year too. A whiff there, not great. Not great for sure, but all around, Adam Peters has done a great job. You're going to miss on some draft picks. That's just the nature of the beast. You're buying lottery tickets. But by and large, I mean, brought in great free agents, got the right quarterback there at number 2. I'm excited to see what they do going into this offseason with a ton of cap room and a legit franchise quarterback. The championship window is open next year. I mean, it was kind of open this year. Championship window really starts next year. You have got another 3 years at this point, maybe, probably 2 years, because you're probably going to extend Jaden Daniels after year 3. These next 2 years, you got to strike while the iron's hot. I guess it is probably 3 years, because I doubt the extension will kick in until year 5. You know, instead of the 5th-year option, they just strip that and probably start the new contract, I would imagine. So you got 3 years here. Make the most of it. We'll see what the new administration does. I think they nailed the head coaching hire, and I think they nailed the GM hire. So to come off the Dan Snyder era, which we heard some stuff about Dan Snyder this week, just classic Dan Snyder shit. Tried to bungle or foil the sale process at the last minute. First off, $6 billion asking price. Makes me question his eye as an investor, because even $6 billion, buddy, if we were talking fair market value, Danny boy, you drove the franchise into the ground so hard that, frankly, even $6 billion's probably a bit of a bargain. I would have paid up to maybe $10 billion for this team, given the neighborhood they're in, the untapped market, because, one, the team's racist roots. No way around that. They really loved bringing in white players for a long time, and really loved the Redskins name, which drove away a lot of minority fans in that area. So you already got that working against you. Then the Dan Snyder era comes in, and it's just nonstop for 30 fucking years. All of a sudden, coming off of all of that, you get a new owner in there. An owner that's willing to spend a whole lot of money and commit to winning, and knows how to win in a way that the previous ownership had zero clue how to do. You got a new ownership group. Looks like you nailed the hires at GM and head coach. You got a franchise quarterback on a rookie deal that is already playing like a top 10 quarterback. Washington fans, you're living a charmed life right now. You're living an absolutely charmed life. But I mean, it's crazy. At $6 billion, I still think that was below fair market value for the Commanders, just because of how far Dan Snyder drove them into the ground. Something about the name Dan Snyder. Apparently, it just breeds bad people. I mean, sorry to you, Dan Snyder out there, that I'm sure is a fine fellow. The public track record, not fantastic, though. Not fantastic on Daniel Snyder's. That being said, a lot of optimism overall in this game. Yes, you got run out of the building if you're the Commanders, but boy, oh boy, is there a lot to be optimistic about there. Obviously, the Eagles are in the Super Bowl, so kudos to them. I think they got a really great chance of winning it. Problem is, they're going to be exercising some demons to get there, because, unfortunately, and this is why I didn't pick the game, folks, because roster-wise, the Bills do have a better roster. There's no way around it. I mean, you look at basically all levels of the team, with the quarterback being the exception. They are just better than the Chiefs right now. I think the Chiefs may have a bit of an advantage on the defense. I think some of the nerds, shout out Ben Solak, got that wrong over the course of this last week. And credit to the boy over there. He looks to be about 15, just freshly out of high school, newly graduated because he graduated early. He has a child. That's something that you should know. You're making fun of a man with a child, although he does look like a supple young boy. I hate that I said that. Strike that from the record. I won't do it. But yeah, he's sticking to the Josh Allen should have thrown to Khalil Shakir because he was wide open thing. And of course, we're talking about the fourth down play that ultimately ended the game for the Buffalo Bills. Worth noting, by the way, that Josh Allen threw a perfect pass to Dalton Kincaid that he just, straight through his hands, dropped. So worth noting, even though he didn't throw to the wide open guy, still did a pretty damn good pass. And then ultimately, Khalil Shakir was wide open. The problem is, 2 rushers in his face. The play is designed to roll out to the right, obviously. There's not a fucking player in the world that could turn around and responsibly and reliably hit Khalil Shakir, even though he is wide open. It is not physically possible for Josh Allen to make that throw, even if he would have saw Khalil Shakir. That's the beauty of quick pressure. It doesn't give you time to see the wide open man on the other side of the field. You got to make a throw right now because if you don't, you're going to take a sack, and that is a guaranteed loss of the ball on downs even. So, yeah, nerd film takes aside. We're going to move past that, I suppose. Buffalo Bills just didn't get the job done. Kansas City Chiefs won a barn burner. Absolute classic once again for these teams. Unfortunately, never seems to come out well for the Bills, but banger. Absolute banger of a matchup. Kansas City Chiefs win 32-29. Man, I'll hit on the Buffalo Bills of this in just a second. We got to give the Chiefs their flowers, of course. This is, I believe, 8 straight AFC Championship games for the Kansas City Chiefs. 3rd straight Super Bowl they're going to. They are looking for a 3rd straight title to go along with that. Probably staring down the face of Travis Kelce retiring if and when you do get that title. Nothing is guaranteed at this point because they're facing a hell of a team, which we'll probably put a pin in that after we discuss it briefly here in just a bit. But yeah, it's an impressive all-time run for the Kansas City Chiefs. It is bolstering the case for Patrick Mahomes as the greatest player of all time. Again, many of you will not agree with that now. I understand. It's going to take some time for many of you. Though whenever I bring it up in casual conversation, people aren't really giving me pushback. I don't think people like Tom Brady enough to really make a hard case for Tom Brady unless they are New England Patriots fans, which I get it. But rationally, I am sure many of you will take a while to come over to my side. I'm telling you now, though, Patrick Mahomes is Jordan. He's the thief of joy. Lamar Jackson, Josh Allen, all of the great AFC QBs, unfortunately, hit the wrong side of a heads or tails proposition. If they would have gone to the NFC, they might have had more of a chance. Unfortunately, you're in the same conference as Jordan. And if we remember anything about Jordan, of course, it is that guys like Charles Barkley, great players, Hall of Fame players, never won a title because, unfortunately, whenever they got there, Jordan was just staring them down from across the floor. Actual Jordan, not football Jordan and Patrick Mahomes. But that's exactly what's happening here in the NFL. Thief of joy, and I'm crediting this in part to Bomani Jones. He's been on this train for quite some time. Thief of joy, thief of success, thief of legacy building accolades is what he is, because as long as Andy Reid is there, as long as Steve Spagnuolo's there, as long as Patrick Mahomes is there in Kansas City, they're going to keep going to AFC title games. They're going to keep going to Super Bowls, and they're not going to be this bad on offense forever. They're going to get back to where they were 3-4 years ago at this point. I don't know if they're going to make a change with Matt Nagy as the play caller. I don't know if it's just a matter of going hard in the paint, bringing in receivers in free agency. I don't know. Maybe getting a true X wide receiver in the draft could help. Seems like Hollywood Brown, probably a little bit of mutual interest for him to come back next year with him being on IR the entire season. They're going to be better even than they have been. Probably all kind of hinges on Chris Jones and his longevity, but he's not that old. He's not he's not exactly young, but he's not that old at this point, and they've still got him for quite some time. The Chiefs are really in danger in the next couple of years here of surpassing the Tom Brady dynasty. I mean, as far as peak dominance is concerned, if they get a three-peat this year, that's something the Patriots and Tom Brady never did. They won back-to-back in, I believe, 01-02, I want to say. Could be wrong on the timing there. Maybe 2000, 2001. Never won a three-peat. That would be a notch on the resume that Patrick Mahomes has, that Tom Brady does not. Obviously, Tom Brady's always going to have that head-to-head in his favor. No way around that for Patrick Mahomes. But as far as overall resume, it's only a matter of time. It's only a matter of time. But frankly, man, I mean, the Chiefs just they didn't get lucky because this keeps happening. It's not lucky if it just keeps on happening. What happened is Patrick Mahomes played like Patrick Mahomes. Didn't put up crazy numbers, but 18-26, 245. That's 9.4 yards per attempt. 1 touchdown, no interception. Rush for 2 touchdowns, though. That's huge. They used him a lot. The Chiefs used him a lot, very intentionally in the running game. Isaiah Pacheco, I don't know what's going on with him, but Kareem Hunt's completely supplanted him, and Kareem Hunt's really not that good. I mean, efficiency-wise, Chiefs are 3.9 yards per carry, not very good at all. But 3 touchdowns, though. 3 huge touchdowns. That's the main thing that ultimately got him over the edge there. And even with the fumble by Patrick Mahomes, it was their only turnover. Even with the Bills being basically perfect throughout the game, not committing one single turnover, it just wasn't enough because that man on the other sidelines refuses to lose. When it is 2 minutes left in a ball game or under 2 minutes, basically 1 possession left, it's a 1-possession game. There's not a man on the planet right now in the history of the NFL I would rather have than Patrick LeVon Mahomes. No question in my mind. He's the best of all time. And unfortunately, the Bills just put themselves in the situation too many times where 1-score game in the playoffs against that man, and doesn't matter which side of it that you're on, if it's not a 2-score game, you ain't got a shot. That's just what Patrick Mahomes has shown over and over and over again. I think he's still perfect on those late game drives to take 1-possession late game drives. I think he's still completely perfect on scoring on those drives. So yeah, just really impressive, really dominant player. And I'm looking forward to seeing how they face off against the Eagles here in the Super Bowl, because that's the best defense they're facing. Frankly, it's the best team they're going to have faced all season. And I don't know. We'll see if it's going to have to be on the back of Patrick Mahomes' brilliance. But we'll see if the Chiefs got the horses offensively to go out there and score some points on the Eagles. I mean, the Eagles are a nasty secondary, nasty defensive line. Even without Nakobe Dean, they're still nasty in the linebacking core. Zach Bond, all-pro. People forget. Turned himself into a hell of a player this year behind that nasty defensive line. Offensively, Jalen Hurts is not great, but he doesn't have to be great because he's got the best running back in the league, the best offensive line in the league, a group of receivers that can get open when you need them to and make clutch plays. Basically, all Jalen Hurts has to do is not blow their foot off with a shotgun, and the Eagles are going to at the very least be in this thing. Frankly, they have a better roster than the Chiefs, but the Chiefs have had have not had a better roster than like any of the elite teams they've played. So we're in well-charted territory, but uncharted territory, if that makes any sense whatsoever. You can't go off of the paper anymore because the presence of that guy and Patrick Mahomes and the presence of that coaching staff, the defensive stars that they have, it just means they're always going to be there at the end, and they're always going to win. They went 15-2, and frankly, their team is not fantastic. It's good. It's very good even, but it's not fantastic, great, knock your socks off. I'm interested to see. I'm interested to see how it goes. If it's anything like the one that we got in the 2023 Super Bowl, buckle up, folks. We're in for a treat, but we just won't know for the next 2 weeks. Now for the Buffalo Bills of it all. I think the window is close to closing here. Josh Allen is still in his prime. So you have that. You do have that. James Cook is a young running back, although I think he's, year 3, year 4. Probably going to end up franchise tagging him when the time comes. They're probably just going to kick that can down the road, but you're going to have to pay him at some point. He's earned it. He had a monster season this year. In Joe Brady's offense, he's been one of the best running backs, easily a top 5 running back in the entire league since taking over that bell cow role that he's taken there. Had another 2 touchdowns in this one. So offensively, you're still pretty optimistic there. If you can get some receivers, that would be ideal. Defensively, the cupboard is just bare. And bare is maybe not the best way to put it. I mean, they've made some good draft picks over the last couple of years, but the defensive line is old. No other way around it. No way to sugarcoat it. They're just an old defensive line right now. Linebackers wise, Matt Milano is finding himself on and off the IR, which he's getting to the twilight of his career. He's probably their best player right now on defense. Secondary wise, Christian Benford is good. You did bring him in not too long ago. But some questions on the back end right now. They just need bodies on defense, and they just don't have the cap space to spend on it right now. They're going to have to get even younger than they did this past offseason. They're going to have to shed even more cap, I would say. And even then, you're carrying a huge contract for Josh Allen. You're going to carry a big contract for James Cook. Obviously, you're carrying a big contract for Amari Cooper. That trade seems like a whiff at this point. Amari Cooper seems to be just about done. But I don't know. I mean, you're just going to have to continue to draft players and hope that they turn out. That's the way that you continue to elongate this window. And frankly, I don't know what they do with Sean McDermott. It feels like they're, knocking at the door every single year, but one thing or another pops up and they just can't get over the finish line. And look, if they lost this game last week, and they would probably fire Sean McDermott at that point. I would say go ahead and fire him because Ben Johnson's still available. If Ben Johnson's still, you can't look at me with a straight face and say if the Bills' job and the Bears' job are open, Ben Johnson is still taking the Bears' job. He's going to the Bills 100% of the time. If that was the case, I think you fire him and then you live with the consequences because you bring in a utter change of pace, the best available coaching option that was on the market, and an offensive guy to boot. So you expect Josh Allen to go to even another level there. But that's not the case. That is not the case right now. Right now you're looking at probably bringing in Cliff Kingsbury. And I'll tell you right now, Sean McDermott is a better head coach than Cliff Kingsbury. Firing Sean McDermott to bring in Cliff Kingsbury, that's the definition of cutting off your nose to spite your face. So I don't think you do that. I think you just kind of roll with Sean McDermott. But what more can we expect of them than what they've given? It just feels like they've reached their ceiling with Sean McDermott as a coach. And he's a really good head coach. I think he's a guy that would go somewhere else and have a really good head coaching career. But as far as the Bills are concerned, I just don't see where you go from here. Now, the bright side is you still have Joe Brady as the offensive coordinator. So you're rolling with him into another year. That should be good. He's proved to be a very, very competent offensive coordinator with the Buffalo Bills, especially with the way he's been able to utilize James Cook, but a lot less clunky than, oh God, what was his name? Former Miami quarterback, Dorsey. Ken Dorsey. I almost called him Keith Dorsey. But yeah, better than the Ken Dorsey era for the Buffalo Bills. So you just run it back. It's a tough pill for the fans to swallow. You want to see changes after another year where you finish short of the Super Bowl, but you just got to ride. You just got to ride with what you got because you're not going to get better than what you have right now. That's just simply not going to happen. And yeah. That you just got to keep rolling. I hate to say it, but you just got to keep rolling with what you got there. So, Buffalo Bills going into the offseason, You just got to hit the draft picks hard on the defensive line, wide receivers, probably a little bit in the secondary, and then you just hope you get some studs out of that. That's the way you continue to elongate this championship window. It's by nailing your draft picks. So, hey, Brandon Beane, another huge offseason for you coming up here. It's not quite as big as last offseason, but still a really big offseason for you coming up. We'll see what he does with it. So now we have got the Chiefs and the Eagles, a matchup from 2 years ago, a rematch from 2 years ago, after the Eagles stumbled down the stretch last year and didn't hold up their end of the bargain. Wouldn't it be poetic if the Eagles ended this two-streak Super Bowl here, two-straight winning streak Super Bowl? Sorry about that, just completely out of my brain. Sorry about that. But that would be poetic. I think they've got a better shot this time around than they did last time because they've got a guy that can close a game out. All due respect to Miles Sanders. Never has been that guy, never will be that guy. He was a product of a great running scheme with the Philadelphia Eagles. Saquon Barkley, you can put him in the worst run scheme of all time. We saw it with the Giants, with the terrible offensive line. He's going to make big plays. He's the best running back in the league. And behind the best offensive line in the league, damn near unstoppable. And I have a tough time seeing the Chiefs stopping him in this one. Look, man, I may ultimately bet on the Eagles outside of the show parameters. Man, I'm not betting publicly against Patrick Mahomes again. That's just a losing proposition. I may wish that I ultimately publicly bet the Eagles, but look, man, I'm going to abstain from that for right now. We'll see if my feelings on that change over the course of this coming week. But time will tell. We'll put a pin in that for now. Extremely excited for that matchup in 2 weeks. That's going to be a dandy. We got a bullshit Pro Bowl on the in-between. We're going to have to get by with basketball. Basketball betting is already off to a hot start. Again, with the timing wise, doesn't work out great for an in-show sort of segment here, but I'll tell you what, your boy is cooking. Your boy is cooking. 2-0, so only 2 bets so far, but we loaded up the slate for tonight as I'm recording this. Three big time bets, so that's good. That's going on, but yeah, we'll put a pin in that for now. And with that said, let's take a look at some headlines here, shall we? Going along down the river here. So, actually, correction off the top. I made brief mention to Wojtek the Bear, Polish Bear, by the way, who carried artillery shells to Polish gunners. I cannot stress this enough, not the Red Army. The Polish volunteers Polish regiment under British command, they are the ones that had Wojtek the Bear. Great bear, wonderful animal. Tragic end, got kind of shipped off to a zoo where he just kind of, did what all animals do in a zoo. Well treated, very comfortable prison cell. They get bored, they die, bored and depressed. But was an absolute laugher. Apparently a real ladies magnet on the circuit with the Polish troops. Huge hit with the ladies, a tame bear. Wojtek, absolute hero, a Polish hero. Cannot state that enough. Polish hero. I apologize for saying that he supplied the Red Army. That's a blunder, especially if you know anything about how the Soviets treated the Poles in the Second World War. Committed some serious war crimes against them. Big correction I needed to make. So, had to make that first and foremost. Probably should have made that at the top of the show, but that's on me. I apologize. Anywho's, into the headlines, shall we? So, a lot happened. A lot happened here. Apparently, firing Trent Baalke was the magic button that brought Liam Cohen back. Goes from agreeing to a big extension in Tampa to, this was a crazy storyline. I'm sure you all kind of followed it throughout the course of this past week, but let's just kind of recap. So, on Wednesday, Liam Cohen pulls out of the running for the Jaguars job. Looks like Trent Baalke's going to stay there. So he pulls out agrees to a massive extension with the Buccaneers. Huge money, would have made him like one of the highest paid coordinators, if not the highest paid coordinator in all of the NFL. Then Trent Baalke gets fired later Wednesday night, not uncoincidentally, after Liam Cohen pulls out. Thursday morning comes around. Liam Cohen is supposed to be in the facility, signing in Tampa Bay, signing his contract to be the Tampa Bay Buccaneers OC. He does not show up. He tells the team in a note that he's got a family emergency. He's at the hospital with his wife. Yada yada yada. He's not answering any of their calls. He is not at all at the hospital with his wife, unless that hospital's in Jacksonville. He is, during that time, as he is getting these phone calls from the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, is in the Jaguars facility, hammering out a deal to be the next head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and they give him huge money, by the way. I'm talking Ben Johnson type of money, $15 million a year, for a guy that's had a meteoric rise over the last 3-4 years or so, coming as a relatively unknown from the Rams staff, does a good job at Kentucky, but limited talent-wise down there at the college level. Comes up to the Buccaneers, has a massive year, the best year of Baker Mayfield's career once again, after he just had a career here with Dave Canales. Meteoric rise, but that's besides the point. All this stuff is happening. Liam Cohen's not answering the phone right now. He answers the phone one time when Todd Bowles calls, says he's in the hospital. That was a lie. That was a bold-faced lie, and ultimately Jaguars were trying to keep it all hush-hush because they still had one more minority sham interview to do on Thursday, which, Robert Saleh, have a little bit more self-respect, man. Just have a little bit more self-respect. No show for that interview, dude. Just no show for that interview. You don't have to take that interview. You know it's a sham. Just don't go. Don't go, Robert Saleh. Maybe it was Romeo Crennel even. He seems to be the go-to rubber stamp Rooney Rule hire, not Rooney Rule hire, but Rooney Rule. All right, we'll just check this box and then hire the lily white candidate that we really like because there's just something about him that seems trustworthy more so than the black alternatives. But yeah, just whoever that final guy was to satisfy the Rooney Rule, just don't show up. Just put the Jaguars in that spot. Just don't show up. Don't do it. Don't do it. I hate that. I hate that because I get it. You're probably burning bridges for future head coaching opportunities, and there's only 32 of these things. You don't want to burn any bridges if you don't have to. But they're treating you like a fucking patsy. Just grow some stones. Don't show up for the interviews. If you know you're not getting the job, don't show up for that interview when you know that Liam Cohen is in that building, hammering out a contract to sign the minute you leave. He's probably hiding in a broom closet somewhere, just waiting for Robert Saleh to exit the building. He comes out, they hand him the pen, and then he signs it immediately. I mean, doors like just closing behind him. Liam Cohen's just putting ink to paper on that contract. It's a sham. It's an absolute sham. I don't need to belabor the point of the Rooney Rule. It's been a sham for a long time. It'll continue to be a sham. And I don't think the NFL truly cares about it. They'll pay lip service to it. They'll tout all these bullshit numbers, but they don't really care. They just, it's a rubber stamp. It's exactly what it is, and they have no interest in changing that. So that being said, Liam Cohen is now the head coach of the Jacksonville Jaguars, and we'll see who they hire as the GM. Obviously, Liam Cohen's going to have massive input on that. Just seems like a lot to put on a guy that's never been a head coach before. Look, I get it. You want some sort of synergy with the head coach and the GM. I've seen it work both ways around. Head coach helping hire the GM, GM helping hire the head coach. I've seen it work both ways. It's just, man, it's such a Jaguars way to operate. Give this guy all this money. He has no experience with picking a GM, probably has some ideas of the type of philosophy he might want, but he doesn't truly know what he wants as a GM. He doesn't truly know who he's going to work well with because he's never, ever been in that position. Look, I like Liam Cohen. I think as a head coaching candidate, he's a fascinating one, and I think his path is really exciting just based on, I think more coordinators should get their feet wet in the college ranks. Easier arena to succeed in scheme-wise, gives you a kind of testing ground to test out some creative concepts, then come up to the NFL level, kill it, and go to the pro head coaching ranks from there. I love that path, but the Jaguars are making it just about as hard. The only way that they could have made this situation harder for him is if they didn't fire Trent Baalke. That's a guaranteed lack of success right there. At least he's got a shot here, but really they should have fired Trent Baalke the second the clock. They should have fired Trent Baalke on Black Monday. Let's just call it what it is. They made a mistake. They're the only people, the Cons are the only people in the league that didn't know that Trent Baalke was a total slithering snake. And they paid dearly for that. We'll see if it tanks their next head coaching regime. I don't know. I like Liam Cohen. I think he's got a better shot because he won't have a GM that's looking to throw him under the bus at every opportunity. Maybe he'll get a GM that can draft worth a damn, knows how to build a roster. Trent Baalke never knew how to do that. Never will. Just a snake, just a slithering snake. And real David Sampson. If you guys know who David Sampson is, I do love him as a content creator. I hate him, but that's also why I love him. Big heel type of guy. Love to hate the type of dude that he is. Real slimeball. That's the main thing. Real slimeball football executive. And I would categorize I would categorize Trent Baalke under that same umbrella there. But we'll see. We'll see who they get. I don't know a damn thing about any of these GM hires. So yeah, good luck. Good luck. No one knows who the hell's going to be good at either head coach or GM for that matter. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. At least maybe he'll get the best out of Trevor Lawrence. Who's to say? Who's to say? That being said, we'll keep it moving from there. The Raiders also made a decision on their next head coach. They are bringing in Pete Carroll, former USC Seahawks head coach, won a Super Bowl, won a national title. Obviously, that was quite far in the past. Worth noting, I mean, Jim Harbaugh and Pete Carroll just live to poke each other in the eye, man. Those two people hate each other more than any two people hate each other on this planet. They've hated each other since Pete Carroll was at USC and Jim Harbaugh was at Stanford. Deep running beef. 1 second. I got to wet the whistle here because... Yeah. Getting a little parched there on that one. But yeah, I mean, as far as Pete Carroll and Jim Harbaugh go, it's I love crotchety old men with a long-standing beef. Neither of them really know why they hate each other, but they're just too deep into the hate to give it up now, so they just lean harder and harder into it. I mean, Pete Carroll was probably jumping at this opportunity to piss right in Jim Harbaugh's Cheerios twice a year. You kidding me? He probably took a pay discount to take this job. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that dynamic. That hatred is something that's beautiful, and I want to see until the end of time. I hope they both keep those jobs forever. That being said, as far as the merits of this hire, don't get me wrong. This is not, I mean, Pete Carroll's 73 years old. He's a young 73. Let's be honest on that one. He's probably a guy that's going to live to be anywhere from 90 to 100. He's going to be building houses like Jimmy Carter until he's 99, 98 years old. But, I mean, he's not a guy that you expect to be around for longer than, say, 5 years. Probably not going to stick around any longer than that. That being said, look at what the Raiders have gone through over really, I mean, as long as I've been alive, you could say. I mean, the Raiders have not had a consistently good head coach in a long, long time, but especially over the course of the last couple years. I mean, just whiplash from John Gruden to Josh McDaniels to Antonio Pierce, now to Pete Carroll. You just need someone to come in at this point. Because, I mean, the Raiders, they're a bad roster, one of the worst rosters in the entire league. The culture is dog shit. There's no other way to put it. You lose for that long, you are what your record says you are after a certain point. You got one good player. Actually, no, you got two good players in the Great White Hopes, that being Max Crosby and Brock Bowers, stud, best tight end in the league. I'll stay it till the cows come home. But you basically got those two players and a bunch of, I guess Jacoby Myers is all right. And then a bunch of bums outside of that. You need a full roster overhaul. And you need a full culture reset. And no, Pete Carroll is not a long-term guy. Like, he's not the guy that you're hoping to keep around for the next 20 years if you hit the lottery on the hire. He's the guy that you bring in, though, and the culture changes from day one. I think Dan Quinn is kind of a pretty good indication of this. I mean, after years and years of suck in Washington, you just needed a guy that was going to bring in positive vibes. Pete Carroll coaching tree, by the way. Positive vibes, relentless positivity, always empowering guys, and building a winning culture. That's what a guy like that brings to the table. Pete Carroll brings that in spades. He is a guy that's going to change the culture on day one. The Raiders, they're a long way from where they ultimately need to be roster-wise, but they are going to be better from day one under Pete Carroll because he brings a winning culture literally every single place that he goes. He's a Hall of Fame coach for that reason, even at the age of 73. Defensive coordinator, offensive coordinator hires always going to be a question with him. But as far as a culture builder is concerned, I think he's going to be a dynamite hire, at least for a couple years here. Now, he's going to outstay his welcome. He's simply too old to be a guy that you bring into the future here. But as far as a guy to reset the culture, get you back on the right track, I don't know if there's a better guy in the market right now than Pete Carroll. So I think the Raiders needed this type of hire right now, because if you jumped right into one of those young hires, he'd just go right into the blast furnace like everyone else has that has gone in there. You need a guy to soften the landing spot. I mean, these moves, by the way, John Spytek, the GM, Pete Carroll, the head coach, they got Tom Brady written all over them, by the way. These are looking like rational football decisions, and especially with the Tampa ties with John Spytek, this just feels, both of these hires just have Tom Brady written all over them. I don't know for sure. Nothing is concrete. I'd be shocked if something didn't leak out here in the coming months, especially if the Raiders have a good opening to the season, that Tom Brady was leading the way on these hires, because they're both very rational hires. I think they're what the Raiders need for right now to right the ship and set up the next head coach to stay there for a decade. Because right now, the Raiders are not in a position to do that. Not every coach is going to be Dan Campbell, who just comes in and is just a revelation overnight. Another guy that brings some relentless positivity and makes guys believe in themselves. Not everyone's going to be that guy. You want a soft landing spot so that a young head coach can grow with his team and ultimately bring you where you want to go. I think Pete Carroll can soften the landing spot for that next guy. I think he can have a good degree of success, right off into the sunset, into retirement, and then pave the way for the next guy to come in and ultimately take the Raiders where they want to go. So I love that hire. I mean, it sounds like a retread hire, and it kind of is, but I love that hire. Sue me. That being said, we'll keep moving from there. Notre Dame defensive coordinator Al Golden has accepted the job to become the new Bengals defensive coordinator. Really not going to matter if the personnel doesn't improve. I think, hey, Al Golden, good defensive coordinator. All the credit in the world to him. He coached one of the best defenses in all of college football last year. The Bengals already had one of the best defensive coordinators in all of football in Coach Lou Anarumo, and they ran him out of town. I don't think they upgraded substantially, if they even upgraded at all, this offseason with Al Golden. The bottom line is, if you don't get defensive linemen outside of Trey Hendrickson, and if you don't get bodies in literally every other area of the team, it's not going to matter. You're going to have the same ranked 20s or worse, high 20s, mid 20s defense that you had last year, that you had the year before, and you're going to keep having that problem until you get better players in there. It doesn't matter. You could bring in Bill Belichick himself. He's only going to get a, average out of this unit. It's Trey Hendrickson and a bunch of dudes right now. And frankly, this is just a very Bengals sort of move. You bring in, you slap a new coat of paint on the old lemon that you're driving around, but if you don't replace the engine with one that can purr, you're not going to get to your final destination here. So yeah, I mean, Bengals don't have a scouting department, don't have the money to spend on a scouting department. They're about as bare bones and family run as you can get as an operation. They're just going to have to get lucky on draft picks. That's the way it is. They got lucky as hell that they got Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase for that matter, and T. Higgins for that matter too, I suppose. So all the credit in the world to Duke Tobin on those picks. But I mean, until they invest in winning, a lot like the Cowboys, except for it's more maddening with the Cowboys because they've got the money to spend. They just don't do it. We're going to talk about the Cowboys here in just a second. Don't you worry. But unless you invest in winning, you're going to get exactly what you pay for. And what they're paying for right now is average or worse. Is what it is. You're going to squander all the years you have with Joe Burrow. And hey, I don't see that changing anytime soon. So the choice is yours, but I already know what your decision's going to be, unfortunately. The Texans did what needed to be done. They fired offensive coordinator Bobby Slowick after a disappointing season offensively. It does bear mentioning, this coming here per at Coop A Fiasco, that's Andrew Cooper on Twitter here. Texans hire Bobby Slowick. Slowick installs his scheme from San Francisco with a fullback. Texans get rid of fullback and trade for a third wide receiver, forcing a scheme change. 2 of 3 wide receivers get hurt. Texans fire Bobby Slowick. End quote. Valid points. Valid points were made by our guy, Andrew Cooper, on that one. So, hey, Texans weren't running the style that was conducive to Bobby Slowick. I would counter by saying, if you're truly a good offensive mind, you can adapt around the personnel that you have. But as a young first-time play caller, that's a tough situation to put him in. So I understand that much. That being said, this needed to happen. I mean, if you're going to go in that direction, I mean, and you knew that it wasn't going to work out, you should have fired him last offseason, quite frankly. But yeah, I mean, this was what they needed to do. I don't know where they go with the offensive coordinator, but I'll tell you what, DeMeco Ryans, you better nail it. You better nail that offensive coordinator this time around. At the very least, unlike the Jets, you've got a quarterback. You know C.J. Stroud's the dude. And you got a GM that you can trust, I feel like, in Nick Caserio. That being said, man, some echoes of Robert Saleh. Not total shades of Robert Saleh. Some echoes of Robert Saleh with the whiff on the first offensive coordinator hire. Let's see what they do for round 2. I will be watching that over the course of this next week. I don't imagine that'll take long to come together at all, but I will be watching closely. And, yeah, at the very least, this was the right decision to fire him. Just maybe not the right decision to hire him. Exciting prospect whenever they first hired him, but we'll see. We'll just see exactly what they do this offseason, who they end up bringing in there. But, yeah, Texans are in the market for an offensive coordinator. I'm just interested to see who they replace him with. So there's the main thing. Okay, let's get into the Dallas Cowboys here. So the Cowboys hired Brian Schottenheimer as their new head coach. I'm sure you've heard about that by now. It happened over the weekend. One, told you all the Deion Sanders thing wasn't going to happen. That's just... I know the contract numbers for Schott. I mean, I don't know the contract numbers for Schotty. I would bet my bottom dollar that they are significantly less than Deion Sanders' asking price was. So you can't tell me that wasn't a factor. 2, feels like an uninspiring hire on the surface. Could maybe be sneakily that this is maybe not a bad hire. see Seattle. I mean, from 2018 to 2020, as the Seahawks offensive coordinator, Russell Wilson went 2018, 37-7 touchdown to interception ratio. 2019, 31-5. 2020, oof. Okay, sorry. I totally misread that. Oh, yeah. 2020, a career high, 40 touchdowns, 13 interceptions, and promptly dropped off a cliff when he went to a new offense the following year. So, that's 3 of the 5 best seasons of a borderline Hall of Fame career here for Russell Wilson. The rushing offense, 2018, finished first. 2019, fourth. 2020, bit of a down year, still finished 12th. 4.8 yards per carry. All that said, I mean, it seems like a sneaky okay hire, career offensive coordinator. Makes you wonder why he wasn't ever a head coach. But let's be honest here. Jerry wanted a yes man, and it does. None of this matters. None of the stats I just read off. Nothing matters unless Jerry Jones invests in the franchise. It's the same problem as the Cincinnati Bengals. Again, it's just maddening because Jerry Jones is not a poor man. Never has been a poor man, never will be a poor man until the day that he dies. He has plenty of money to spend on this Cowboys team. He's just allocating his portfolio to different areas. He's putting more money into the oil sector because that brings in more money. He's putting in more money into real estate, all that sort of stuff, because that's bringing in more money. The Dallas Cowboys, mark it as he might, they're just not the moneymaker. And you know what? It's not that they're not a moneymaker. It's that they're a cash cow. And when people think cash cow, I think I might have been over this on the podcast before. When people think cash cow, I think they get the wrong idea of what that means. I think when people hear cash cow, they just say, okay, you put in money and it prints money. You put in more money, it prints even more money. So you just got to keep putting in money. That is what we call a star in the business world. That means it's high investment, but you get high returns on it. But the high investment is something that you got to keep on doing. A cash cow, conversely, is something that you do not have to put a whole lot of money into, and it'll still just keep printing money. That's what NFL teams are. That's why there's a lot of shitty owners, because a lot of shitty owners look at the bottom line and say, I can max out the cap, spend all of this money and get a winning football team and make this certain amount of money, or I could spend right above the salary floor and make the same amount of money. Now, for a cheap-ass piece of shit that doesn't want to win and has not a competitive bone in his body, that's a hell of a proposition. I mean, I'll tell you what, Dan Snyder ran that grift for 30 years, essentially, with the Washington Commanders. There's a lot of terrible owners and a lot of terrible franchises in very good leagues that have taken this tact for a long time. And as long as there are pieces of shit that look at nothing but the bottom line and not the winning, there will always be terrible teams with terrible owners. And frankly, I don't think Jerry Jones is a terrible owner at all. But the bottom line is, why would you put more money in the cash cow if you're just looking at the bottom line when there are different avenues that you could put that money in with a much higher rate of return on that money? It's all an allocation formula for Jerry Jones, and that's not how you win a Super Bowl. That's how you make a shit ton of money. That's not how you win a Super Bowl. To win a Super Bowl and win a championship in general, in owning a franchise, you have got to do things that don't make a whole lot of business sense, but you just throw all caution to the wind because, one, you're still going to be making a ton of money, and two, winning is the goal. The goal is not to make the highest profit margin possible if you are a a sports franchise owner. If you're running it that way, you're running a shitty franchise. The goal is to go all in, win as many games as possible, and get asses in seats to entertain fans. You should not be buying a football team to make and squeeze as much money out of that asset as possible. Franchises in general, like sports franchises, should be nothing but billionaire vanity projects. I'm talking Blue Origin and SpaceX for Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, respectively. Do you think they make a shit ton of money off of that? Because I'm telling you right now, they probably get a bunch of NASA funding, a bunch of government funding for their space exploration. They ain't making a shit ton of money. I'd be almost willing to bet that they're operating at a loss, subsidized by the government. But it's a billionaire passion project because going into space is fucking cool. You know what else is fucking cool for a billionaire? Building a kick-ass franchise and winning a bunch of championships. That's fucking cool. That's something to brag to your billionaire friends about and hold over your measly 100 millionaire friends about how you're better than them. That's what sports franchises should be for. Bragging rights. You shouldn't be trying to extract all you can out of an asset like Jerry Jones is doing now with the Cowboys. You should be throwing not all good business sense to the side, but you should be throwing some good business sense to the side if you truly are committed to winning. And frankly, Jerry Jones would get irate at this if he heard me say it. He's not committed to winning. I don't care what he says. He may even believe that he's committed to winning, and I think he truly wholeheartedly does. He's not. I don't think he knows what commitment to winning is at this point, because if he knew what it was, then he'd be being lying and disingenuous this whole time, because he's not holding up his end of the bargain. He's not hiring a comprehensive coaching staff to get the best product out there on the field possible. He is not pimping out his players necessarily, but pimping out the watching rights. He's, renting out suites for practice. You can rent office space overlooking the Dallas Cowboys field. And I'm telling you right now, there's probably a lot of empty, undecorated offices with just cameras set up pointed right at the practice field. We've been over that on several occasions as well. That's part of the marketeer that Jerry Jones is, getting in the way of the GM / owner of football team that Jerry Jones is as well. You're not spending money in free agency. You're investing in big-time names that'll put asses in seats, but not investing in a well-rounded roster. Haven't had one of those in several years at this point, and one could argue that you never have under Jerry Jones. Just top-heavy roster with some stars, but no depth, and that's been the case for really as long as I've been alive. It's the reason why they haven't gone to an NFC championship since before I was born. The Cowboys are not committed to winning. They've not been committed to winning since they won their last Super Bowl. Hell, they've not been committed to winning since Jerry Jones fired Jimmy Johnson. If we're being honest, with ourselves, Jerry Jones has been looking for yes men since Jimmy Johnson was in town. He's not been looking to win. He's been looking to win his way, which is not a way that can win at this point. So the ball is in your court, Jerry Jones. Problem is, at 86, I don't see it changing, and this hire is indicative of a lack of change there. Basically, if you're a Cowboys fan, you just got to wait this out and hope against hope that Stephen Jones bucks all of the trends that we have seen historically from second-generation ownership, which, if you want to stay optimistic and you're a Cowboys fan, don't Google it. Don't Google it. That's my advice to you. If you want to keep the optimism, do not Google what I just said. That being said, I think I've said my piece on the Dallas Cowboys. They're unserious franchise. They're a reality show. They're not a real football team, and I'm frankly upset and sad that Dak Prescott is stuck on that joke of a franchise. And there we go. I've said my piece on that one. Huge news this past week, and I apologize for just getting to it an hour and 4 minutes into this podcast. Penn State. Boy, oh boy, Penn State took a swing, folks. Over the weekend, they poached star defensive coordinator Jim Knowles from Ohio State, and they got him on a massive deal. $3 million a year makes him the highest paid coordinator in all of college football. So he's now the Penn State defensive coordinator. Don't know that they upgraded substantially from their previous defensive coordinator. However, it is worth noting that I believe Penn State is scoreless in the last 12 possessions against the Jim Knowles, who is now their defensive coordinator. So that's just a matter of buying the competition and having it come from your rival in conference, the one that you've been trying to get past all this time. It's just, there's nothing short of titillating. Oh my goodness, I love this. This is some classic college football drama. They raid the staff, why don't you? I love, from this perspective, and Josh Pate, I think, put this brilliantly on his podcast. I love that what this indicates for the overall direction of the Penn State football program, because this is a notable shift from what we've seen. Over the last couple of years, Andy Kotelnicki, he was a solid, good offensive coordinator hire, and I think he ended up being very, very good on that side of the ball. Jim Knowles was just a look, man, who's the best possible guy we can get for this job? Let's just go hire him, give him a blank check, say, hey, we're going to make you the highest paid coordinator in all of college football. Why don't you come on over to State College, PA, and help us win a championship like you just helped Ohio State do that? That's a slap your nuts on the table, show what you're made of sort of move that Penn State has not done. Really in my lifetime. They've not been that team. And it's indicative of the willingness to spend in other places, particularly on the roster. We're talking NIL to keep players in town, NIL to bring players in. I'm pretty sure, watch out for Penn State in the spring portal window, man, because they might be absolutely headhunting out there for the top of that spring portal class. I think they're going to be spending big money in this de facto free agency period that they've got coming up. Who's to say that they don't poach a couple players off the Ohio State roster coming over to follow Jim Knowles? I'd be shocked if one or two didn't come along. I believe they're still in the window where they can enter the portal at this point, especially with their defensive coordinator leaving. That might open it up again. Even then, they might get even more in the spring portal. Penn State, this is an all-in decision right here. This is a decision that tells me I'm tired of getting just short. I am, unlike Jerry Jones at the pro level, I am ready to invest in winning football, and I'm willing to spend whatever it takes to do that. I'm very excited to see what Penn State is next year. The problem is they still got Drew Aller, who I still don't believe in. But man, you got to be excited if you're a Penn State fan, because this program has, in this one hire, this one little hire right here, has shown more willingness to give James Franklin every tool that he needs to win a championship than they've been throughout his entire tenure. And that's nothing short of incredibly exciting. They know that they got one more year to win with Drew Aller. And God bless their hearts, they believe in the kid. I still don't think so. I still don't love it, but I love what this indicates, man. I love the direction of this program right now, and I'm very excited to see where they go in 2025. Really, really hyped to see where they go in 2025. Now, who's to say what happens with Ohio State? They have their pick of the litter as far as defensive coordinators go at this point. Do they dip into the NFL ranks? Do they poach a college coordinator from somewhere? Probably someone's head coach, if I had to guess at this point. I don't know. Well, that'll probably materialize over the course of this next week, I would say. I don't think that'll take long because we're already late on in this process. Already a pretty late hire by Penn State. You got to get that shored up immediately. Like that. You got to get that shored up. So that'll probably come down the pipe this week. I'm sure we'll talk about that next week. But huge, massive hire by Penn State in that one. And then one last hire. The Seahawks are hiring Clint Kubiak as their new offensive coordinator. Not a terrible showing with the Saints. I think he ultimately ended up being better than I expected. I think the jury is still all the way out on whether he's a good play caller or not, because granted, you had Alvin Kamara in there. You had Chris Olave. That offense was poo-poo dog shit. Terrible. I mean, just the full fruits being ripened from the terrible shit-eating cap hell that Mickey Loomis put them in, and we'll see if he gets them out this offseason. Tough for an old dog to learn new tricks. Tough, but I have a hard time seeing that he would be coming into this season without an understanding that it's time to pay the piper. So we'll see on that. But that's all to say, the personnel was so god-awful for the Saints last year on offense that you can't really discern whether Clint Kubiak was good or not. Let me tell you, we're going to find out this year with the Seahawks, because Geno Smith right there at the Mendoza line for quarterbacks. But I mean, if offensive line's still an issue, it's always been an issue. But I mean, they got two really good running backs, a loaded wide receiver core. There's no excuse for Clint Kubiak not to put out a solid offense at the very least with the tools that he has available at his disposal. Even with an inconsistent offensive line, he should put together an offense that's worth writing home about if he is any good at offensive coordinator. So we're going to find out here in 2025. Seems like much more of a hire that I would expect as the offensive coordinator for a defensive coordinator. I was so excited when Mike McDonald brought in Ryan Grubb from the college ranks last year. And unfortunately, it feels like that may have scared him away from big splash hires at offensive coordinator, because Ryan Grubb, I still believe in him as an offensive coordinator. I think he's still going to end up somewhere. I'm telling you right now, if the rumors are true that Chip Kelly's not going to come back, I think Ryan Grubb's going to slot into that offensive coordinator slot for the Ohio State Buckeyes immediately. I don't think Ryan Grubb's going to be out of a job long. I'll just put it that way. I think he's probably going back to college, but I don't think he's going to be out of a job too long on that. Clint Kubiak feels like the type of safe hire that defensive coordinators love when they become head coaches. So hope that's not indicative of an offensive philosophy shift. I sure hope not, but we shall see. We shall see. Jury's still out on Mike McDonald as far as his quality as a head coach, too. Let's not forget. Went 10-7 this year. Good first year, but we need successive years of success, my friend. So we shall be watching. Jury's still out on that entire coaching staff. And John Robinson, not letting you off the hook either here, man. You've been there a long time and not had a whole lot to show for it outside of a couple solid years. And, of course, the Legion of Boom. That does deserve credit, but where are the receipts since then? Where are they? Where are they? That's the main thing. So that's my impassioned plea to John Robinson to get it together. Just get it together, my friend. That being said, I think that's pretty much all for this episode. I think we hit on pretty much everything. Ended it off in like a solid little, hour, 15 minutes is probably going to end up being here by the time it's all said and done. But with that said, thank you all so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. We are in the off season now, so back to one time a week. Still sticking to it here on Tuesdays for now, so look forward to that here as we go into the off season. We'll be revisiting those recklessly early predictions from back in May. Don't you worry about that. We'll be hitting that after the Super Bowl here. Really have not even looked at that in quite some time, so I'm very interested to see where we stand on that. But yeah, you can follow me on the socials at CalebVUA. Link will be down in the description. Obviously, like, subscribe, rate, share with friends. Help me grow this thing. And I'll love you long time. How about that? I'll love you for the longest of times. Forever, even, if you do such a thing for me. That being said, thank you so much for tuning in to Unqualified Analysis. As always, I have got no clue what I am talking about. That being said, one thing I learned this week, hot off the presses, the Appalachian Mountains are the world's oldest mountain range at over 1.2 billion years old. Billion with a B, my friends. And just for, just so you know, that is good 900 million years older than the dinosaurs. They'd been around for hundreds of millions of years when the dinosaurs were around, some 65 million years ago. So that should give you an idea of just how old the Appalachian Mountains are. But an even crazier fact, they've been around so long at this point. Oldest mountain range in the world, like I said. They've been around so long that they are at least, emphasis on at least, like this is the baseline, like most optimistic age year wise, like as far as oldest prediction for Saturn's rings compared to the age of the Appalachian Mountains, which is pretty well documented at this point. At the very least, 3 times older the Appalachian Mountains are than Saturn's rings, which are estimated to be 400 million years old at the very oldest. And some estimates put them down at what was it? What did it end up being? 120 million maybe. So at the very least, or 100 million, I believe. So anywhere from 4 to 12 times the age of Saturn's rings. That is how old the Appalachian Mountains are. Wild stuff. That being said, I'm going to go edit this thing. I'm going to shower because I just came straight from the gym, walked my dog. The sweat was all dry, so I just, I took my nasty ass in here and banged this thing out real quick. So yeah, I'm going to edit this thing, go shower, and I will see y'all next Tuesday, folks, where we're going to start taking a look there at the Super Bowl and getting hyped up for that. Until then, I will talk to you later. See ya.